Welcome to The Infinite Life with Katische Haberfield. I'd like to take you on a transformative journey, exploring the mysteries of the soul. I hope you enjoy the regression case studies, mediumship interviews, and fascinating discussions that I've had with guests on the podcast. I hope that these answer some of the questions that you might have about life on this planet, on others, and in other dimensions. Thank you for joining me, and please don't forget to like and subscribe. And, most importantly, share with your friends. Namaste.
Welcome to the Infinite Life with Katische Haberfield podcast. I'm your host, Katische Haberfield, and this week we are still in season 13, and we have another fabulous, interesting, exciting guest, and her name is Shanti Hershenson, and we also have her pet, Matt. Oh, Max is my cat's name. Jin is Shanti's cat's name. So if you are on the YouTube version of this, you'll get to see the very cute little kitty cat, which is a black cat with a pink stripe down her nose. Yes. So anyway, back to Shanti. Totally distracted by cats. Love cats.
It's okay.
So Shanti Hershenson's first two novellas were published when she was in the 6th grade, although her writing journey started long before then. Ever since she could hold a pencil, marker, or crayon, she was creating stories. They started from pictures, mere scribbles, and eventually turned into captivating tales. She lives in California with her parents, sister, and furry friends. Besides writing, she enjoys skateboarding, Beyblading, free running, Falconry, and of course, reading. She writes in a variety of genres, including science fiction, fantasy, and historical fiction, although she mostly sticks to sci-fi, and hence her cat's name from Star Wars. She advocates for anti-bullying, and you may find her at open mic nights performing her spoken word poem, Needle and Thorns, which is about the struggle of bullying in middle schools. Welcome to the podcast, Shanti.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.
I always forget how old that bio is.
Okay. What would you like to add to it now?
Oh, it's so funny because I wrote that one when I was in middle school, so it's like I have new poems I perform now at my open mic nights. But yeah, no, Needles and Thorns is my classic.
Okay.
It's too timeless to ever remove from my bio.
Okay. So do you remember it off by heart?
No, not anymore.
Okay.
I wish. It's like I remember the opening because I know the opening is something along the lines of like, these people don't listen, no, they refuse to hear. There's a lot of like interesting rhymes in the poem because then I know it ends with the same. But other than that, it's like I think if I'd perform it, I would mess up just because it's like it's been so long.
Right.
I think the last time I performed it publicly, I think it was 2 years ago, maybe 2.5 years ago.
Okay. So what about do you have one that you have off the top of your head, or just because I love poetry, so I thought.
Ooh, off the top of my head, no, but I can totally like grasp one right now because I have.
Yeah, cool. That's a cool way to start the podcast. So I thought,
that'd be awesome. Yeah. I recently got back into poetry. I hadn't done it for about a year because a lot of my poems were inspired by my middle school experience. So then after that, I didn't really know almost like what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I had no good inspiration for what to write. But this year I'm taking a creative writing class. So I have to. But it's been so cool to really get back into it. I'm trying to find one that I really have never performed before. However, I'm auditioning to perform it at my school event, so I really need to practice it.
All right. Here's a good example. Good.
Yeah,
so what grade are you in now? What grade are you in now?
I'm a junior. So.
Okay. And you're 16, that's right, is that?
17.
17.
But I mean, I always say I just turned 17, but my birthday's in October, so I guess it doesn't really count as just turning 17. But I don't know. I feel younger than I am.
Right. Okay, cool. So you fire away and find your poem. I have 2 kids too, and I have one who's 16, turning 17, and one who is 18. So 2 boys. And we call, the reason why I asked you is the one who's 16, turning 17, he's what we call in senior school. So here in Australia, that's grade 11. So that's why I was like, trying to see how you are in age-wise in comparison to my boys.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same grade.
Yeah, sounds like it.
All right, so I have this poem. For context, do you know the painting called The Reluctant Bride? It's the painting of the. Honestly, I didn't know of it until I had to write this poem. It's an ekphrastic poem, so it's supposed to be like commentary on the painting, kind of. And I didn't know because I'm not really into art. I try. I'm not good at drawing and painting myself, so therefore I've just never been as interested in it.
Mhm.
But I had to pick a painting to write about, and this is the one I picked. And it's basically just this woman who's about to get married, and she's just like deadpan, staring. I want to say at the camera, but obviously no, but like at the observer. So that was basically what inspired it, and it is called C'est la vie. Okay. So, there exists a woman squelched in a room of exquisite wallpaper and unrelenting demise. She sits in grim knowing and begs for the arrangement to cease. C'est la vie, her mother snarls, once in the same position, a lifetime ago, never to be free again. Around the woman, her sisters prepare, hands interlocked, soothing words, prideful palavers, something like that. Anyways, yet they snicker at her reluctance to be wed, that resent bleeding in the morning of. This doesn't mean they won't share the eldest daughter's fate. Soon their bodies will be stuffed into undyed fabrics, the death of a life never lived. Thorn blossoms plugged into pockets like tape over the mouth to conceal breath and make certain the protests are not heard by the poisoned minds who may try and save her. Nothing can be done. Capture this moment in pain and paint what will someday be coined as a poisoned woman's rage. A reminder of the sisters sold and lost, of the tumultuous bent over filthy dishes instead of polished canvases. And after a lifetime of thraldom, the paint will begin to parch, but her maim will never end. C'est la vie, the man says, as he drags her into his bedchamber. Soon the light will shrivel from the woman's eyes, her voice shall dwindle, and her name she will never know again. That poem is so hard to read on my phone because it's spaced really interestingly across the page. So on my phone it looks really odd.
You did well. That was great. That's really interesting too. I'll have to go
Thank you.
find that painting so I can listen back and look at that painting as well. But it picks a very vivid image to me of choices being made for other people. Is that that's what you were conveying?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And so you sent me very kindly a book, going straight into books, which I read, which was called Helipads in Heaven. Now, this book, well, I read as an ebook, and it strikes me now, as you said, your bio was a little bit out of date, as something that you only launched it about a year ago, right? But it strikes me as more about middle school days. Did you write it as a reflection of your time in middle school, or was it more about the sci-fi element that you were reflecting on? Because it's got time travel in it. So what was the inspiration for Helipads in Heaven?
Yeah, it's definitely more inspired by my childhood self and my younger self than it is an actual science fiction book. I say it's my furthest book from science fiction, other than some other projects I've currently written, because it really uses the time travel as this sort of device to propel the story rather than something that's actually the center point of the novel. So I'd say it's much more of a contemporary novel than it is science fiction. But yeah, it's really an exploration of my younger self and sort of the idea of healing your inner child and also appreciating your younger self, even if they're a little bit embarrassing. And it was really, in many ways, a healing project for me. I guess technically the book takes place in elementary school. Because yeah, for us, fourth grade's elementary school rather than middle school. So it has similar vibes, though, to the book I wrote about middle school, and that it is really about bullying. But more than that, it's about the older character who is there. I mean, the characters are very much based on me. It takes place where I grew up. It has real locations to where I grew up, and it's really inspired by that. So in many ways, the Helipads in Heaven is if myself in the future, I'm 30, hopefully I'm famous and cool, and I go back and I really get a chance to actually reflect and see these sort of traumatic and upsetting moments, but then see how they also led to me as I am today.
Okay. And did you have similar experiences where you were critiqued for your writing and told that it was no good in school?
I felt, yeah, when I was younger, I felt that there weren't a lot of people who really paid attention and actually cared so much. I mean, outside of my family, you know, I felt like it was like a struggle to get my voice out and to be taken seriously. Because you know how it's you share, I want to be a writer, and people are kind of like, oh, you know, take a real job. So in that way, I think I kind of felt that. I think I felt really not too, you know, like appreciated, or I didn't feel like I was able to share my writing freely. And it's like it's hard to remember exactly because a lot of that book I kind of filled the gaps where I don't exactly remember, kind of in the same way the main character doesn't remember, where I was like, okay, I don't know if this actually happened, but it's very likely that it happened. Like one thing I found was I was reading my old like progress reports, and there were comments about, you know, Shanti should improve her writing skills. And I kind of took that and I was like, well, I am. I'm trying. You know, I'm writing during class instead of doing math. I'm trying. I don't know what you want from me, kind of. And I did feel like there were students that I, you know, grew up with who they were, you know, they liked writing and they were much more praised for their writing than me, even if I didn't necessarily. And I don't know. You know, at the end of the day, we're all 10 years old.
Yeah.
So yeah, it kind of comes from these, yeah.
But it can kind of be like, you know, we've all been through school and, you know, you learn to do and write what the teacher wants. So it could be that they were more formulaic writers than you. Yeah. So,
I think in that way, oh, sorry, what were you going to say?
No, you go.
I think Helipads has a lot of like commentary about like education sort of and like the education system and like how nurturing the individual and, you know, creativity in school is like really important.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up writing books too. I'm not a published author like you. I've written in some co-authored books where you know you write a chapter and
that's cool.
Yeah, but I have a friend. I don't think I have it here with me, but in like grade 4 and 5, like similar ages to you, used to write a lot, and I kept the copies of the books that I wrote. They were just tiny little books until about, I don't know, 5 years ago, and I'm turning 50. So I kept them for 40 years. And in the back of the books, they would rule lines and the people in the class would leave comments. And I remember, at the time feeling a little bit sad about the comments, you know, because they were just like blur comments, you know, yeah, good, fine, okay, you know, like nothing.
Yeah.
You know, nothing inspiring or reflective of what I wrote, even though the content wasn't, you know, that amazing. But I remember thinking when I last saw them, you know what, it's probably hard in grade 4 or 5 to be a classmate of somebody who's writing a book and to write something really sort of amazing, because, you know, like boys and girls at that stage and, you know, even through high school, it's kind of like, if I write something really cool, will she think I like her when I actually don't? I just want to write something nice about the book, but everyone else will go, ooh, you know. So, you know, I did notice with hindsight and reflection that, you know, people probably didn't write exactly what they felt, because it's a tiny ruled space, and, you know, what am I supposed to write? You know, she's just a kid in my class writing, and, you know, it's an okay story, but, you know, I wouldn't buy it or whatever. But you do wonder how much that does impact on your desire to write. How is it? Because most 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds, 20-year-olds, 50-year-olds haven't got published works. You know, there are a lot of people in this world who say, I want to be a writer, and it takes them most of their life to get their first book out. But you've had 2 novellas published when you were in the 6th grade. Tell me, how did you get those novellas published? Was it your parents who you were advocates? Was it just pure brute force of you going, I'm going to do this? Who was helping inspire you, and how did you figure out to publish a novella?
So for those first 2 novellas, this is going to sound crazy, it was an accident.
Okay.
And I mean, so I wrote these little novellas with my friend, and, you know, we were 11 and we really wanted to get that printed copy. And I just went online and I was like, how to get a printed copy of a book. And then that led to Amazon's Kindle Direct Publishing. And then that led to actually getting those printed copies and having the book appear on Amazon. And basically every other website you buy books online. So in that way, I mean, I knew what it meant to publish a book when I did it, but it was also very quick, just, sort of impulsive, but it was also awesome. And then that experience helped me a few months later when I started writing my first book. And then about a year later, when I actually, was done with editing and cover design and I knew how to publish. So yeah, it's like that initial, yeah.
Because a lot of people like my age are like, oh, yes, it's supposed to be really easy to publish on Amazon, but we hold ourselves back because we're like, oh, it's going to be really complicated. It'll take a long time, blah, blah, blah. So it's really not that hard. You can teach yourself.
I'd say the actual process of publication, the filling out the form online and publishing it is easy. It gets easier, you get a hang of it quickly. The hard part is all of the essential stuff that leads up to it, like editing and cover design and marketing. And that's where the work is really tough because, if you're traditionally publishing, you have the publisher to do a lot of that for you, but instead you have to source your own cover designers, find your own editor, make your own marketing plan. But honestly, it's so worth it. It's been such a great learning experience to get to learn how every single part of a book launch works. And then it's like in the future, I can take that and, do what I want with it, keep on publishing, obviously, but then also, use this knowledge to maybe get traditionally published or to work in publishing and just, the sky's kind of the limit.
Yeah. And so how did you go about finding an editor and a cover? A lot of people stop right there.
So my editor, I've had the same editor literally since the beginning. And this actually happened because when I was first writing my book, I reached a point where I was a little lost. I was just like, okay, I'm writing, it's good, but I want to get better. I want to improve my writing. I want to actually, I like this book, but it could be better. I'd never taken a writing class before. And this was in the middle of distance learning, so it wasn't like school was that accessible for me. And even then, school wasn't going to teach me the writing I wanted to learn. So I was like, okay, I have two options. Either I go online and take a creative writing class, which I thought of, or I get a tutor. And in the end, I asked my parents if I could have a writing tutor. And I ended up meeting my writing coach, she's another published author, and she's done really well. And so my parents, reached out, right? And basically, it's like writing coaching but then that turned into her being my editor. So, she reads through my books. We do, the proofreading, the like sort of, how I feel like you always need another pair of eyes to look at your book, both to make sure that there are no errors, but also for plot points and stuff. So yeah, that's basically how I found my editor. It's worked great. I think, I obviously have to do several rounds of editing, but then to have that, another person look through it for all the different errors that could be there, it's been really helpful. But yeah, it started just because when I was in 7th grade, I was like, I need to learn writing,
Yeah, cool. And what about the book covers? Like, how does somebody go looking for a book cover creator?
I've had so for me, there are so many different, I'm also, okay, to be fair, I've grown up online. So it's, I don't know, for me, just like doing a quick Google search feels really easy.
Yeah.
But I think the best way to start is to like go to different websites where you can hire people and there are like, there's safety to it rather than just finding a random person online and asking them to do it. So I started out, the website that I write my books on is called Readsy, and they have this great, writing editing platform. They also have a marketplace where you can hire, editors and marketers and cover designers. So the first cover designer I ever hired was from Readsy. And then from the more I've published, the more I've met other authors, that's when I've started really making those connections and finding designers. So again, another thing you can do is you can just look on Amazon and specifically look for books that are self-published, independently published and are doing well. And from there, you could go literally look in the copyright of the book and see who the cover designer is. And more often or not, there's someone you can hire. So I believe that's how I found my primary designer now. They're called Mibelart. They're this company based in Ukraine, and they're amazing. They do these covers really quickly, 8 days. You get the cover, and then you pay, so that's really helpful. So you don't even need to pay a deposit. So if you don't like the cover, then you don't have to pay. But I've never not liked the covers. They're always amazing, and they have really great support and really great unlimited revisions. So, and they're also like just really supportive of my career. They interviewed me for their website at one point. They've posted my books. And this is a company too, so they have like several different designers and all these styles. But yeah, really, I believe how I found them was seeing a book cover on Amazon that I liked, and then looking in the book's copyright to see who designed it, and then looking up that designer.
Oh,
They're
wow. Okay.
also, yeah, a lot of authors also have recommendations on their websites and stuff. So if you look
Okay.
for cover designer recommendations, you can find great ones there too.
And so, not having ever used Readsy, how is that different to write a book than just, say, opening a Word or a Google Doc?
It's so much more organized.
Okay.
You can split it up by chapter, you can add a prologue, you can take notes, and also tracks your writing, like how much you've written that day and like the goals you can set. To be fair, I also use NaNoWriMo to check my writing just because I don't know, I just like it and I like the stats if it'll tell me all the words I've written across all my books.
Right. Yep. Okay, cool. Excellent. And when I asked you to come on this podcast, I noticed in your profile that you use TikTok, and I'm like, remember, I'm almost 50, so TikTok's one of 7 million social media apps, and I'm like, oh, do I have to be on it? But then I read everybody saying TikTok, BookTok, it's huge, it helps writers. So talk me through TikTok and how it helps you with your book sales.
Of course. So I started my TikTok account in about 2021, and this was when BookTok was at its peak. And so it was cool because I really got to watch how the publishing industry and these trends changed. And basically, I think with TikTok is that TikTok made reading, I feel like TikTok made reading cool in a sense.
Okay.
Like it turned reading into something that's not just like, quote unquote like sophisticated or like for nerds. I mean, I am a nerd, but it kind of turned it into something that can be enjoyed by everyone and it's accessible. And it really shared the like importance of genre and the importance of like, the niches within reading. So I think that TikTok is great, especially if you want to connect with young readers. Because BookTok was obviously predominantly Gen Z readers who really, just found their niche.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a young adult author, it's essential because obviously the majority of young people are on TikTok. So it's this direct way to connect with your readers and like, respond to their comments and just reach them. And at the same time too, even if you're writing for older just adults as well, there are plenty of adults on TikTok. And I just think the video format is so much more just like reachable and like, engaging than Instagram. And I mean, obviously now Instagram has reels and stuff, so it's very similar. But it's just a good way to just connect and to make almost like, and in some ways it like humanizes you too if you're on TikTok.
Yeah.
And it really makes you this reachable voice that then people will be interested in reading.
So, for example, when you were ready to launch Helipads into Heaven, how did you use TikTok, for example? Was it like just you talking about the book? How did you use TikTok?
Yeah, so I made a variety of different videos in different formats, but for the most part, a lot of it was talking about what the book meant to me.
Okay.
Rather than, oh, you should read this book because it's gonna, it's cool and it has this in it, but it's more first off, I started with what this book means to me. And then I figured out what will this book offer the reader? What does this book mean to this person? And kind of establishing that connection while also humanizing myself at the same time, I think was really how I was able to connect and reach with readers. Some of who ended up being my ARC readers for the book and left early reviews. Because the majority of my like advanced readers actually just come from TikTok and Instagram.
Okay.
But yeah, I kind of found that, especially with Helipads, I reached a lot of people with Helipads, and I just did it by humanizing myself. Because I'm also aware that I think if people are scrolling on their For You page and they see oh, I'm a 17-year-old author, I published 20 books, it can be really hard to kind of almost like, humanize with me. So I kind of try to make an effort to be like, hey, so I wrote this book, but I wrote it because it's important to me and it helped me.
Yep.
And then from there, I'm like, hey, it might help you. And also, I just made fun videos. I do a lot of like, aesthetic videos that are like show different images that could represent the book. Music was really important in the book, but also in my marketing of it and using music that people might really resonate with. Because it's like, if I like a book and I see a book advertised with a song, I'm really going to want to read that book.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, cool. Because the reason that I sort of also wanted to talk to you on this podcast was because there's a lot of people who listen to my podcasts and who have been guests who have been just involved in multi-author collaborations. And they're like, I've written a chapter, and now how do I market my chapter so that I can get this book sold? So what I'm going to recommend is that they go follow you on TikTok so they can watch your videos, and then they can learn by relating to you and understanding, and then they can read your books, and then they can tie the two in together to say, okay, this is how Shanti did it, this is how she used music, this is how she personalized it, and they can read the book and they can see how it ties in. So you're like this living, breathing example for them. So you might even convince me to go on TikTok. Stranger things have happened.
You might enjoy it.
I might enjoy it. You never know. And so the other thing that really struck out to me in your profile is that you enjoy falconry.
I do.
I have a past life memory of owning a falcon and being a falconer.
That's so cool.
So that's what I want to know. Tell me more about your falconry.
Oh my gosh. Can I like show a picture like on my phone for whoever's on the video? I have always loved birds. The one thing that I remember potentially starting that love, founding that love for me was I was about 6 or 7 and I got home from school and I remember it was just me and my mom and there was a hawk sitting in our front yard. And I was like just completely captivated. Like I had this like connection to this bird and I walked up to it and the bird let me get really close.
Wow.
And just look at it. And then I started asking my mom if I could go to hawk camp. I was like, I want to go to hawk camp. I don't even know what that was. Probably falconry camp, but I didn't know the term falconry at the time. So my parents found these falconry classes. And so this is me at about 6 or 7.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
With a hawk. Okay, the craziest thing. So, obviously my name is Shanti, and it's kind of an uncommon name. And this hawk, her name is Shanti.
No, really? Wow.
That's Shanti, yeah. And so I try to go at least once a year. Of course, it's hard. So I used to live in Los Angeles, and the falconry place that I go to, it's called Sky Falconry. It's the best. It's in Alpine. But now I live in San Diego, so I live just a little bit closer. So this is me. Where is it? I know it's here. Sorry. Here we go.
No, you're right.
That's the owl. Here we go. This is me and Shanti.
Wow.
10 years later, maybe.
Wow. How long do hawks live?
They can live, I think, a while. I think so. Harris hawk can live 15 and 20 years old, I think.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then
they're massive birds too, aren't they? They're heavy.
Yeah. Yeah, the hawk was the heaviest of all the ones I've held, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
I also, this is me with an owl.
Oh, I love owls. Yeah.
He was adorable. And then, where are the falcons? Where are my falcons? And then, this is the falcon.
Oh, wow. Wow.
I think
in your books, have you ever written about the birds?
yes.
Yes.
I have this book that it's genuinely one of my favorite books. Right now, I've been trying to query it, but if I'm not successful querying it, because it's kind of a niche book, it's about falcon, and it's about this little girl doing falconry, and it's supposed to be like a young adult book. So it's a bit of a niche book. So I'm hoping that maybe I can get an agent through this book. If not, it'll be self-published soon.
Yeah.
And it was so cool to write because I really got to explore like that connection between like a girl, like humans and animals. And yeah, it was so fun.
Yeah.
And it's very much just falconry.
Yep. Excellent. I don't know if you are spiritual or not, but so I have a spirit guide, an animal spirit guide, and his name is Snowy, and he's an owl. So he sits on my right hand shoulder. And I see him a bit like Hedwig in Harry Potter. Like that's what he looks like to me.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I love those owls. I honestly, the owl was like one of the coolest. So they're like, he was so sweet. Says it's So that day, I guess because I forget this is an American thing, but we had this emergency broadcast test on our phones, and basically everyone's emergency alarm was going to go off. And falcons are really sensitive to sound. Not falcons, owls.
Yeah.
Especially the great horned owl. So we all, we turned our phones off, right? But then the broadcast sound played anyways, and the owl like kind of freaked out.
All right.
But he was so cute. And he was like so gentle, despite the fact that he's like an apex predator. Yeah, that was one of my favorites.
They're not going to hunt you, are they?
No. Honestly, the birds are so sweet, and they're like oddly gentle. Yeah, I love them. I've always wanted to have a raptor. I think I want to get I would love to have like a kestrel falcon. They're like adorable, and they're like relatively small. And I have to obviously take the falconry test to do that.
Are they the ones like that the royal family had in the United Kingdom, where they have the green things over their eyes, and they?
Ooh, I do not know off the top of my head. I feel like I should know that. I know a lot of random things about raptors, but yeah, these are kestrels.
Okay, no, that's not what I was thinking of. Right, okay, they're pretty.
Is that like the peregrine falcon, maybe?
Yes, that's it.
Yeah.
That's the right word. Yeah.
But yeah. I feel like I can't get a raptor there with cats because either they'll hunt the cats or the cats will hunt them. But yeah, it's like a dream of mine at some point if I can move to a house that's big enough where I can keep the birds in a safe place and keep the cats in a safe place. Because I don't think I can live without cats. I've never not had a cat.
Right. Yep. Excellent. And tell me, why do you mostly stick to sci-fi? How is that your favorite genre?
Oh, so sci-fi is what I started with.
Mm-hmm.
It's really just the genre that I grew up on.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the like stories that got me into writing and really made me realize that I love storytelling were sci-fi. So obviously I'm a big Star Wars fan. And I also early on, when I was very young, my mom read me this book series called Space Cat. It's from the 1950s, I think. I mentioned this a lot, and I'm not sure that a lot of people have read this series. But the premise is there's a cat, and he goes away and goes to space. I really wanted to reread because it's really interesting because it took place before we landed on the moon.
Okay.
So it's like the perceptions of what the moon is versus what it actually is. It's so interesting. But I fell in love with that series. I mean, also, a lot of my stories early on were animals. I could not write about humans when I was a kid. I just didn't know how. I didn't know how to capture that like idea of being human without making me a character. But then I was also like uncomfortable with making me a character, so I'd have animals. And literally everything I wrote, and also a lot of the things I read too, were animals.
Yeah.
And then sci-fi was like the kind of intersection of that.
Yeah. And so when you get your sci-fi ideas, are you like just like how do all these inspirational ideas come to you? What's your process where you generate your ideas?
Yeah, a lot of my books, particularly the science fiction, but also others as well, are really me zooming in on something that I'm interested in or a question I have or something I've observed. I say my books are like, I think my books are really fun to read. There's a lot of action and just funny stuff and exciting moments, but it's also a lot of social commentary. And I think what I've really taken with my science fiction books, I've taken things I've observed, particularly in my country, but also the world, and I've sort of put each of them into a little book. So there's, different, or sometimes it's different concepts that I like zoom into in a book. So like the book I'm writing right now is about cloning, and that's obviously, really famous sci-fi concept, but then I'm like, really zooming in on what would it mean to be a clone, and what if I'm a clone of someone that's not really that great. So it has a lot of like different like moral dilemmas, but also just it's still at the end of the day it's fun.
Yeah, okay, great. Wow. And in the book that I read, you were in your 30s, or the character's in her 30s, and she's a very famous writer. If you could fast forward to when you're in your 30s, what do you see yourself as being famous for? The fantasy, historical fiction, sci-fi? What do you reckon that you would be famous for in the future?
I want to be famous for everything. I feel just the whole kind of combination, because I don't the idea of sticking to one genre.
Mhm.
I love the idea of getting to explore all these different things. So yeah, definitely I'd want to be a multi-genre author.
Mhm.
But within that, I'd also maybe want to dabble in like film as well. But
Ah,
I'd have
right.
to write the film because otherwise I think I might go crazy.
Right. Wow. Yeah. And in my perception, though, like most adults tend to pigeonhole them into one genre. Would that be your observation? Or one or
Yeah,
two?
I see a lot of adults really be like, okay, I'm gonna write this. But I think in some ways, like if that works for you, that's great. But for me, it's not that I worry I would lose the love of writing, because I don't think I would, but I'd worry that I'd get bored. I write so much that I worry I'd write all the stories I can in that genre, or maybe I just get tired of it. But I also always see myself coming back to specific genres that I like. I don't think I'm ever going to be done writing a single genre, unless it's one I really don't like, but there aren't really genres that I don't like. I also like the idea of multi-genres and really sort of combining that and sort of, testing the ideas of what is a genre. And, so yeah.
Wow. And any of your other siblings or your parents writers as well?
Not really. At least, yeah, I mean, I think my mom should write a book. I think she's got a lot of good stories. But no, my mom is a retired magician.
A magician. How cool is
Yeah.
that?
Oh, it's so cool. Yeah, no. I would love to learn magic. I have no idea how she does it. She won't tell me.
Right. Okay. Yep.
She won't tell me any of the magic tricks. But yeah, it's so cool. So I grew up and my mom would do like shows at like my birthday parties and stuff.
Oh, wow.
And then my dad's like a software engineer. So that's also completely different, but really cool.
Yep. Yep. Cool. And for the future, to get into filmmaking, how are you sort of steering yourself in that way?
So for the most part, I'm trying to learn the craft first
Mm-hmm.
because I think if you're good at something, then the opportunities will come.
Mm.
So I took a screenwriting class. I guess it was like not last summer, but the summer before that. And it like blew my mind. There was so much I didn't know about screenwriting. And then also this summer, I'm going to take a playwriting class to try to break into two similar like fields and really just learn how to do them. But yeah, like I think it ultimately the most important one for me is like traditional like prose and novel writing because then I feel like from there I can sort of learn the basics of story or not so much, learn the basics, but really refine those and really solidify my knowledge on telling a story.
Yeah, wow. Wow. Okay, great. You've got so much energy and so much going on. It's really, really fabulous. It's fascinating and really I love to see it. It's wonderful. So coming up for the rest of the year, how long does it take for you to get this next book out? So just say, let's pretend that you don't go the self-publishing route. Let's say that you do get this mainstream publisher. What does that look like for you for this year?
So for me, I'm hoping that I can sign with an agent by the end of the year. It's like technically like I've done well enough self-publishing that I don't like need an agent. But I think it's an important experience and to be able to work with someone to open up those opportunities. And I would really like to, go down that route because I think it's like there's so much that it could just provide me and that I could, learn. But yeah, I'm hoping that I can sign with an agent by the end of the year and hopefully for this book about falconry.
Yeah,
And
that'd be
then
cool.
after that, it's hard to know when that book would come out.
Yeah.
I haven't done the editing and marketing process for traditional publisher before, so it may be a lot quicker or maybe a lot rigorous. So it's hard to know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd like to hopefully have an agent by the time I go to college,
Mm-hmm.
just because then I'm not going to have to worry so much about sending out like a million query letters while I'm in college.
Yeah, yeah. And you want to do creative writing in college?
Yeah, I want to major in creative writing.
Yeah, great. Fabulous. And will you have to go away from home to do that or?
I want to because I think it's like getting the experience somewhere else could be really good for my writing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also, I'm kind of torn because in some ways like I love Los Angeles and there are some colleges I like in Los Angeles, but I grew up there. So it's not really the most. My top college in LA, I grew up 10 minutes from.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, is that really, getting away and getting that college experience if I'm not going somewhere else and, immersing myself with new people and, new teachers and just new ways of living?
Yeah.
I want to go to the East Coast for college.
So, sorry, say that again?
I want to go to the East Coast for college.
Okay, yep, okay.
And I think it's also...
Is there a specific college that you got your goal set on?
Ooh, okay. I really love Bryn Mawr College.
Okay.
I like the idea of going to a women's college and getting an education I love the history of women's colleges and the idea of, giving women really strong educations that also really focus on women's issues.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also, I love some of the courses they have and the opportunities. But I love New York.
Okay.
So I might go to college in New York, but I do really love Bryn Mawr. I'm going to tour it for the first time in April, I think.
Okay. Wow, great. Wow. That all sounds very exciting, and I look forward to following your journey. And as soon as you get that offer from that agent for the Falconry book, you better let us know so we can tell everybody. But in the meantime, I will link everything for everybody in the show notes, and they can go and read your books. And we'll be over to TikTok to watch you so we can learn how to do it for ourselves. So thank you so much for spending some time with us today, Shanti. And I'm really inspired by your creativity and all the different multi-genres. Your cat looks like he's about to open the door.
Oh, yeah. She wants to leave the room.
She wants to leave. She's like, this interview's done, Mum. So thank you so much. And I look forward to reading more of your work. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, take care. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.